Chodesh. It's a new month, month of Tammuz. Every Lubavitcher can only think about Gimel Tammuz, the day that transformed our entire lives completely. And what Korach was fighting against when he says, we don't really need a figure like you, Moshe or Ahron. Everybody's holy, and so he wanted to assert himself. And where that went wrong in the plan. Korach, this week's parsha talks about Korach. He was considered a pikach. He was shrewd. He knew that ultimately gvura, might or severity or discipline, gvura, has an extremely high source. And he made a claim to this position on the basis of knowing this, that ultimately we were going to call Yitzchak our father, because in the future redemption, gvura, severity, conflict, discipline will be elevated. Welcome. We will see in the future redemption that gvura, all that we just said, comes from the world of Tehu. It's a higher energy, and Korach therefore says, knowing that, he can assert himself and stake his claim. We were saying how this also reflects the fact that he saw the revelation that exceeded limitations. So he says, you know what, it's enough that you could connect to Hashem in thought and leave maisa, leave behavior out of it. It's a very it is a relationship to Hashem that's reminiscent of what it's said about when Moshiach comes, that Hashem, you're not going to need a teacher because Hashem is going to be your teacher. So it's really an independence that led Korach to think that he didn't need special souls whose job is to light up all people. Everyone could light up everybody. In what sense was he ahead of his time then? In the sense that the world wasn't quite ready for that. You had to have some time to engage with the world and use it in a disciplined way before the inherent supremacy of gvura, of the world of Tehu, is something that you could experience and be a positive expression in the world. Yes, you can say in Shemayim right now, that's the way things are. Korach had this vision that gvura is higher, as we'll learn in the sources, and understand what exactly that means. And see where he went wrong, and what we say about the role of Moshe and Ahron. Moshe to be the encoder of the Torah, the drawing of the shemen, the oil, which is wisdom that can be lit, which was the job of Ahron, his brother, to light up the souls with the experiencing what that meant, and having Ava Rabbah, we've been learning about the great love of Hashem that's about shining as opposed to burning upwards. It's more about shining down and out. That dynamic duo becomes a necessary component to allow the benefit of everything Korach is talking about to come through. So Korach appears in the turquoise tunics that we talked about that were lacking in the tzitzis, the fringes. And he says we don't need a fringe. We don't need to appreciate the individuated experience. There is a greatness that's accessible to anyone by pursuing the role of a Levi, which is to yearn to get close to Hashem. It's accessible to everyone. It's exactly what we're saying about Moshiach every day here, but he got in a lot of trouble for it because he didn't defer to a higher authority of wisdom and Aaron's benevolence and shining. He didn't defer to that there is other component besides Levi. You have a Kohen Gadol, and what his function is to light up the outside and show how the outside is important in virtue of connection with what's higher. So you have. Okay, I'm having some trouble with the Wi-Fi. Apologies. I'm using my data now. Once you have the right setup and you're connected to the right sources, you have your Moshe in place. You understand where wisdom comes from, and Ahron, you're connected to the heart of the Jewish people and who's able to daven for you and light you up, like Aaron's role is. That's when Korach becomes preeminent as the right voice that the individual becomes the focus, and you have this personalized relationship with Hashem. So I think that's the way. There's a lot of Kabbalah in what we're going to learn. So if you thought that was difficult, just one more thing. The tzitzis also represents the idea of sewing into something. So here, and connecting thereby, it's a taifer. It's a sewing which connects, like you sew on these strands onto your garment with tzitzis. The idea being to connect the higher world that reflects Hashem in a way that it's not really called a world anymore, and the created worlds, connecting the two and making the lower worlds in line with what precedes it spiritually, and is therefore more reflective of a pure source of reflecting divinity without the concealment of the world. So you open the eye of a needle through tshuva, and you put through the eye of the needle, you put the thread, which means, like the tzitzis, you draw into your world what exists in the higher worlds. And that opens up the Piska Shel Ulam, the opening of the entranceway to the temple, which is far expansive, showing that from a tiny speck, from a tiny initiative even, from a tiny glimpse into the authentic you, that is a power keg that opens up a gaping entrance welcoming you in. I want to deal with Gimel Tammuz. I'm probably not going to have time today, but I'm leading up to something that's a very interesting allusion that I found about Gimel Tammuz here to the Rebbe taking on the form of a malach. Using the example of Moshe Rabbeinu, who went 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking, and how that represents the transformation at the highest level. It represents the transformation of the physical to be completely angelic. And specifically through the physical dimension that can take place, that you most reflect divinity, like an angel is a messenger. It's completely nullified to its purpose of delivering the message. So to take the body up to the state of an angel is a different way of looking at Gimel Tammuz. and understanding that this is a message that, at least to some degree, in some respect, we're supposed to experience that, or benefit from that existing in people that we're connected to. Okay, so just a little bit of review that the Levim, and this is the Kutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe, says the Levim are at their core Gvura. They are this expression of likened to fire. V'hainu gam ken Gvuras de'ima, including the Gvura that exists in the mind of Ima, which is Bina, understanding. Asher mebina dini misarin. But the problem is that when you, the closer you approach to Hashem, the more you have to pass through certain phases of judgment. And when you pass through that, you can arrive at the realm that's associated with the Levi, which is Rina, singing, Echuka, and impassioned vocals, impassioned expression of the soul. So that's why they had to shave, we learned. So to not allow that to enter the world in a way that's expressive of a strand, which is the kav, the individualized experience we liken to the tzitzis also. So it's like they shaved. So Korach's, this Levi, says, look, I've shaved off my tzitzis, just like I've shaved off all my hair, because it's really, I've connected myself to much higher thing. I've connected myself to the level of makif, through his rina, through his song, and through his chuka, his yearning, functioning as a Levi. He reaches a higher level and says, it's not necessary to benefit from what's called the kav, the individualized shine that goes to each person, because when you're already lit and at the level of makif. So he was jealous of the exclusivity that was represented by Ahron, because he was unshaved and had a beard which they anointed with oil, which is really Moshe, I think we're going to say. Moshe is the oil, and it goes through the wick and lit through Ahron. The wick, we were saying, was the strand that's dyed like tchelas. It's likened to that. The mitzvah of tzitzis is therefore synonymous in the sense for the menorah, the candelabra that Ahron lights. We speak about the wicks that lit the candelabras that overlooked the Holy Temple in the time of Simchas Beis HaShoeva, that they lit up the whole place, the whole city. And they were actually, the wicks for those were made up out of the tachtainim of the Kohanim, that they didn't want to waste a holy thing that was used as a mitzvah. You're commanded to wear these garments when you serve as a priest in the Holy Temple, and and that's shown even by their undergarments became the wicks that lit up the time of rejoicing in the Holy Temple during Sukkot, Simchas Beis HaShoeva. What do you say in English? Pentateuchs or something like that? So Korach comes and says, The main thing is tchelis. Tchelis, the turquoise, represents the twilight, the unknown. Gvura. Shu amar she'ikar hu atchelis. Ki tchelis hu gam ken v'chinas gvuras. Canal. Va'ach v'shatzi. Va'amar she'ikar hu atalis shekula tchelis. So Korach comes out and says, you don't need tzitzis because the main thing is this massive space that the talus takes up. That represents the makif. Once you've achieved that, you don't need tzitzis anymore. You've at that level, gvura. So he comes with the turquoise talus that dyed in this blue dye to represent the gvura, the nighttime, the sunset of night, when you can't see the meaning as clearly, and things are distant. So he's arguing that if you're able to transcend and identify with the makif, or experience the makif, or channel the makif, this transcendent energy that surpasses individualized or experience. Once you reach there, it blinds the eyes of the obstructive forces of the world. They can't touch this. When you're at that frequency of makif, you transcend all the problems that are more lower frequencies. So once you've achieved that level, then you don't need to draw it down into your personalized inward experience. And he says, in fact, you don't need this at all. Because the transcendent level is higher than the rays that shoot out on the tzitzis, these chutin, the polarities of life. You could transcend it all. And once you do, what's the difference between me and you? He tells Ahron. The thing he didn't realize is that you first have to draw the oil through the wick, because the oil itself, what it represents, is something that's called Yashas Cheshach Sisrei, that darkness surrounds him, that it's an impenetrable wisdom that first has to go through the wick and be lit by someone called Ahron, which is love and kindness, benevolence, chesed. So you have wisdom, the oil, which is unapproachable on itself, and you have Ahron, who's the communicator for Moshe as he approached Pharaoh, etc. He's the one who makes it shine. Oil itself is invisible. You put in a dark room, but you light a wick, you draw it through a wick, which is the tzitzis, or the wicks of the candelabra that Ahron lights, and then Ahron becomes oisios nira, because he brings to light, so that the human eye can see. The individualized experience is connected to what he experienced, which was, we learned about Ahava Rabbah. He had a visceral experience of God, which God was felt in the Einei Basar and in the entire body. So it becomes something that's something very real, and something that he can shed on people and shine on them. Without that, if you're not exposed to that, or let's say you can't do it yourself, you haven't been successful in achieving Ahava Rabbah, great love of Hashem, higher even than Avram, we've been learning about what Ahron represents, not Avas Eilam, but Ahava Rabbah. When it's visible to the eye, everyone can see, when it's tangible, that's what it means that Ahron is shining upon the person. It becomes relevant in his world, the outward world. If you're not connected to that, and you just want to say, okay, I've reached the makif, I don't need the tzitzis, I don't need to answer to anybody. It doesn't, the area of Maiseh, he was impoverished in his behavior and his divisiveness. was the epitome of what you should not do. So he wanted now to do what was something that was going to be revealed in the future redemption. After the world has been rectified, the world itself serves as a natural clothing for the supremacy of Gvura. You'll see it. You'll see how Tehu, this chaotic world of immense energy, can be expressed, yes, in the physical world in the most powerful way. Tied in, when you tie in, he's saying you don't have to necessarily be tied into these people. You could do it on your own. And Gvura rises to the top in the rectified world of redemption. And then what you've done is taken the Yetzer Hara Shemen B'chinas Gvura. You've taken the evil inclination that's out of this world of Gvura, of severity and intensity, Yishafekli of Tov Me'ad, to transform it to be something that's actually considered very good, not just good. And that is, however, only lusted in the future, when the Gvuras will rise up. And that is specifically after they have become subdued from its predecessor, which is Chesed. The story has to start from the Kayin, from the Chesed, from the desire to give. And then it will show the value of who it has been given to. So it's a process whereby you need a certain exposure to this positive frequency of this energy that's shining like a candelabra from the source of Ahron, which is Isis Nira. It's a vision to experience in our world, and then our world, which was formerly a very dark place, but now it too is lit. So the Gvuras that represents that sort of tzimtzum, that distance and veiling becomes molded and fashioned into the ultimate vehicle to express its divine and the core divinity, which is when intended. So there is an order. You have to recognize the preeminence of the need for Moshe, for wisdom, for Ahron to take that wisdom to heart and shine it out and light up other people. So, and other people therefore have the opportunity to I'm not saying you can't do this on your own. You can, but it's still coming from a source that we're just not aware of. Some people have the merit of being close to very righteous people. The people that are completely bereft of their Rebbe, Givul Tammuz, they feel that way. Those people were very close to the Rebbe. And it's very hard for them to break away from the Rebbe as a personage, and when they're not able to approach him in the way that they did before. Now they're taking on more sort of remote channels of communication, which we all believe are just as effective, but much more faith-based than seeing a walking angel in front of them at least on Shabbos they would see the Rebbe. I was lit up from the Rebbe, and I never met the Rebbe. It happens to be that God made the mechanics of the spiritual universe, that he makes generic souls that have greater responsibility and greater connectivity to more souls, and therefore they're responsible for channeling energy to them, even if they don't know about it. So I don't think that the people who did not have that experience of being in the presence of a great person, someone who is to every Lubavitcher Chassid akin to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. And now having to do what basically Korach wanted to do and say, who needs you? I'm not chas v'shalom to say that, but in the sense that you've already lit me up, and now I have to use that. In other words, I've gone through the channels through history as a Jewish people, and in my life, I've gone through the channels. I wear tzitzis. I do everything I can to be connected. Now it's time to express that, what it means to be lit, which means that you're connected to a source that has lighted you up. You might not know where it's coming from. It doesn't really matter. It could be Pinchas was lit up by an angel when he needed to draw on energy. An angel just went into his soul, and he was able to do things that he needed super special effects chiefs to be able to take care of it, because the Gemara enumerates 10 miracles that happened, the Rashi cites. And there was a need for each one. God only does miracles when there's a need. Apparently, there's a great need towards the end of the history of mankind to experience a tremendous reward. And part of that reward is a miraculous existence. So I believe that the miracles are intended to be ongoing because they permeate, as we'll learn leading up to Gimel Tammuz, they permeate nature. So that the nature itself becomes the ultimate vehicle for the ultimate divine, miraculous conduct. When you see the hand of Hashem in every single thing you do, in every step along the way, whatever miracles that requires. I mean, if some people have more difficult lives than others, and they need more miracles. That once you see that the world itself is totally in sync with your needs, and you have miraculous awareness and feeling of assurance that every step along the way there's going to be the hand lifting you up. Do they do that, like in a concert? They take Matisyahu when they throw them into the crowd, but do they ever like give you their hands and they could walk across? That would be a more dignified way to get thrown into the ground. It says the Chachamim sometimes they had to walk over the heads of the people to get to the podium. Anyways, I don't think I covered maybe half of what I wanted to today. But my kids are leaving to camp. And it's busy. It's summer, it gets a bit easier in a way when they all go away to camp. And you only have the dog to take after, which gets pretty easy, and they start to like you a lot when the competition is away. The dog went into the water to swim out to us, to get to us, and she looked terrified, trembling as she was balanced on the kayak. And that was very bonding. Now she really likes me again. I can't compete with Minnie. He's going to get on the floor with her and toss her in the air and stuff. Can't compete with that. But anyways, I thought you'd be happy to hear that this bonding happening with Miss Nugget. Say that fast. Okay. Miss Nugget, it means the opposer, like Korach was a Miss Nugget. Have a great day.